Former Seattle Kraken center Alex Wennberg made his appearance with his new team, the New York Rangers. And Jordan Eberle also was at practice for the Seattle Kraken, though he is the latest target of trade rumors involving the Seattle hockey team. We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. My name is Ayala. I'm the host here of Locked On Kraken, also the host of the Women's Hockey Spotlight on the Locked On NHL channel. And I know we're talking a lot about trade deadline, but I don't want you to think we forgot about women's hockey. So make sure you check Locked On NHL, the women's hockey playlist, for more updates on the PWHL and other things of that nature. Again, Erica L. Ayala here. We've been talking a lot about Alex Wennberg, but you know, if you are an everydayer, an OGer, that Eberle has been a part of conversations. And that is because, again, the Seattle Kraken find themselves in a situation where they are kind of on this cusp, this no man's land, this quicksand, and we're running out of time. The trade deadline expires at 12 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, and it is immediately following the trade deadline that we will hear from Ron Francis. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We have a rundown for you, but this is just an awkward time. It's an awkward time for the players to some extent. It's an awkward time for fans trying to figure out if their jersey is still any good. It's just one of those times where we don't really know what's going on. What we do know is that the Seattle Kraken have been soldiering on. And so we love that. But we have been hearing that Jordan Eberle is involved in some trade conversations. Several people have reported this, including Frank Saravalli, saying, quote, believes the Oilers are one of the teams keeping an eye on Seattle Kraken and Jordan Eberle's situation. Seattle and Eberle are working on an extension, but it sounds like term is the hangup. If Seattle doesn't have Eberle signed, he will be moved prior to Friday's deadline. Whew. Now, this is tough. A lot of what I've seen as far as the reporting saying that the Seattle Kraken want maybe 2 years and Eberle is looking for maybe 3-4 years. And not only is the term some of what they're trying to figure out, but of course, then the overall cost. And I see a lot of people saying, don't give him 3, give him 3, don't give him 4, upwards of $5 million is too much. To me, Jordan Eberle is showing that he wants to be with the Seattle Kraken. And, I don't know what it's going to take. And I'm hoping that we can figure something out because I do like Eberle for this team. I like what he brings. I like the leadership that we get when he is on the ice, when he is in the locker room. And he did speak to media today. So again, we saw that the Seattle Kraken, and I've mentioned this in the last handful of days, whether it was the Seattle Kraken, whether it was Wennberg's camp, likely the both of them, the two teams, the two parties, the two negotiating sides decided to have Wennberg off of the ice. And I even put out there, I'm not trying to speculate. I'm just saying I could see a world in which the Seattle Kraken gave Wennberg that time off the ice, especially because, as I understand, his wife is expecting another child, gave him some time to get his affairs in order. It seems like, from what I know and from what we're hearing reported, that the Wennberg situation and the Eberle situation are different for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, Let's hear from Jordan Eberle, who did talk to media today, just in the throes of the trade deadline, where it seems like there is a really a ticking clock for him and the Seattle Kraken. But he seemed in good spirits. Here's what he had to say to media at at Kraken Community Iceplex.
Standpoint's a little harder, right? Because I'm sure they're stuck between, do we have a chance or we want to get rid of some pieces? So I can't really mention anything or say anything on their behalf. I think, as I can only say as a player, we're just focusing on winning and trying to give ourselves a chance to get in. I mean, for me now, it's I've been through it so many times that you just kind of become status quo. I think it gets harder as you get older when you have a family, your wife and your kids and that sort of thing that comes into play. But I look at it as you just try to go to the rink and do the best you can every day and see where the chips fall.
Which does your agent call you like the end of every day? Do you update hour by hour? How does that go?
No, it's not as dramatic as maybe people think it is. It really isn't. So, the nice thing is that we've been playing hockey. The hard thing really is the 2 days off now, right? So you just start seeing stuff happening. It's easier when you have to play hockey. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, a big piece of the team. Obviously, he plays a lot of minutes, plays in a lot of important situations, and it's a gap that we had to fill. But, I think for the most part that we did a pretty good job the last 2 nights. And I mean, on Winnipeg, that was probably one of the toughest back-to-backs I played, and we got in at 4 a.m, and, we were a bit sleepy in that one. So, the good boys found a way to grind one out and keep giving ourselves a chance. So, I think we've been a mentality for the last couple of years of just next man up, win by committee, win by depth, and I mean, it showed there for sure.
I'm working to confirm this, but it sounds a lot like Michael Jackson, Black or White, was playing in the Seattle Kraken locker room. I feel like that's a detail that has gone underreported, and I'm gonna have to do some recon on that. Jokes aside, music tastes aside, what we heard from Eberle is that, it is a little difficult. I loved the question where he was asked, what does communication with him and his agent look like? And he kind of said, listen, it's not as dramatic as people make it out to be. That being said, he did say it's a little bit more difficult when you have a few days off. The Seattle Kraken were off completely yesterday. They had practice today, and they won't have a game day until Friday tomorrow, which of course we'll talk about that game tomorrow. And so there's just a little bit more downtime, which means there's a little bit more time to kind of absorb and take in everything that's happening. And if you are affiliated and associated with any trade rumors and whatnot, but Eberle seemed in good spirits. He is handling this like a pro. It still seems like he is someone that wants to stay in Seattle. And I understand that the Kraken want to move ahead and want to get some pieces. That being said, I do think Eberle can be a really great glue piece for us. And I don't think we necessarily need to offload a player like Eberle unless they have a big fish that they think they can reel in realistically. And then, I'm sorry, Ubs, but it might be time to go. I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I don't even think it is going to happen. But if the Seattle Kraken feel that extending Eberle is going to keep them out of contention for a player that is doing all of the dynamic things that we always talk about on this podcast, that might be the reason that we see Eberle go. And it's going to be a heartbreaker. Might be the toughest one yet. I don't know. For me, Ryan Donato is up there. But we'll see what happens by tomorrow. And we should have a special episode. I'm planning to go live shortly after Ron Francis talks to media so we can talk about the trade deadline from the Seattle Kraken perspective. That's what's coming up tomorrow. On today's episode of Locked On Kraken, I want you to hear, or I should say, I will report on what Dave Haxtell had to say regarding Vince Dunn, regarding Jared McCann, now that there is no Wenberg on this roster. And of course, we'll talk about if we'll see any other players. We've been alluding to it, but will we see Shane Wright this year if the roster stays intact and there are no more movements, but plenty, as you can tell, to talk about on the rest of today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. Gosh, this read is perfect for the trade deadline. Anyway, if you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites, hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. One of the things that people say they love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place easy. And it's the easy that we really want to harp on. Whether you're a small business, whether you are a large company, you know that time is money. And so you want to save time, save money, but not shortcut finding your MVPs. And that's where Indeed comes in. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Offer is valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/locked on to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Happy Women's History, Seattle hockey fans. That's right. The Seattle Kraken are coming back to Climate Pledge Arena, and they will be celebrating Women's History Month. And that means, once again, we get specialty jerseys. I have them up. We've got Justin Schultz and the one and only Philip Grubauer. They are the models for this particular jersey. The Seattle Kraken will celebrate women in hockey night against the Winnipeg Jets. The specialty jerseys for the night have been designed by local artist Ali Spurlock. The celebration will include performances by DJ Tina J, youth hockey intermission with Snow King Girls U10 teams, and the anthems performed by the Kraken's own Madison Stoneman. Tomorrow, the Kraken Unity Fund will honor the work of Spirit Mishka on behalf of Skate Like a Girl. So we've got some really cool things. That also means if you are a pin collector, if you are a puck collector, if you are a shirt and hoodie collector, then you're going to want to check out the Kraken store for some of that. Dunn updates. Vince Dunn did not skate with the Seattle Kraken today. Dave Haxel would not give any updates beyond that, except to say that when someone did follow up, that he said, I'm not going to say anything more. That's not really for me to say anymore, but he did not skate today. So you can probably assume and insinuate some things about that. If I'm reading into what he's saying, I'm thinking that means that likely we're not going to see Vince Dunn. Now, it's interesting because the Seattle Kraken, they had a practice day today, and we haven't heard anything, at least at the time that I'm recording, that the Seattle Kraken are looking to recall anyone from the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Now, why might they want to do that? Well, they're down a defenseman, and just to make sure you in case anyone else goes down, maybe you want to do that. Or do they want to see Shane Wright play a little center? Is that the road that the Seattle Kraken want to go down? I'm not really sure. We don't really know. And perhaps we will know ahead of tomorrow I mean, I guess we'll see. But I do see a world in which perhaps we see some movement from Coachella Valley. I think also there's a world in which, especially if we are sellers, and especially, and we'll hear from Ron Francis tomorrow, if it's really the outside chance that we're making the playoffs and you want to build for the future, maybe you just let sleeping dogs lie. We'll have a Firebirds Friday quick catch up on our Firebirds affiliate. We also know the Kansas City Mavericks are going to have their affiliate night coming up on March 16th. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think they've been doing a great job promoting it. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, right now, all eyes are on Jordan Eberle, who, if you were an everydayer, if you're an OGer or one of our Locked On Kraken insiders, I love Jordan Eberle for this team. I love his leadership for this team. I think he's been able to evolve a lot and has filled a lot of gaps and holes that he doesn't always get credit for. I'd say the same for Jaden Schwartz, definitely for Jared McCann. But I don't know. We'll see. He seems in good spirits. He seems that he wants to get the deal done, and good for him for knowing his worth. We know that the Seattle Kraken have been down this road before with Donato, with Geeky, and going into season 2, then again with Vince Dunn going into season 3. So, there's a lot to consider, though. Eventually, they're going to have to figure out an extension for Matty Beniers and, figure out just who I should say is anchoring this team. And I don't know, this season has been a little bit up and down trying to figure out what that actually looks like for the Seattle Kraken. It's been tough. And Vince Dunn now, someone who did get an extension, he's injured right now. Now, I shouldn't have probably put those two together because I don't think they don't relate in that, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have extended Vince Dunn because now look at him and his injury. We don't know how long this injury is going to be. We do know that it's upper body, so we'll see. My point in saying that is that one of the leaders, right? One of the pillars that we hope to have for the future at this moment, while the Seattle Kraken are still kind of clawing for a playoff spot, he's not in the lineup. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. He's not in the lineup right now. So we're looking to build, we're looking to get things going without some core pieces. And we were just coming off of getting some guys back. But I want to talk about the standings a little bit in the next segment. I want to talk about what we think Ron Francis is going to talk about. And we'll get into that coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Factor. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Also, there are more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. There are things like 2-minute meals where you can fuel up with Factor's restaurant quality meals that are ready to heat and eat wherever you are. There's no prep, no mess, because Factor's meals are ready to heat and eat. So there's nothing that you have to do to get your meal ready. It's flexible for your schedule. You can get as much or as little as you need by choosing your specific meals every week. Plus, you can pause or reschedule the deliveries anytime. Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, premium options with no cooking required. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com Locked On NHL 50 to get 50% off. That's a pretty good deal, y'all. That's a pretty good deal. And you know what else is a good deal? Our friends at Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement account with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal information. Claims as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. You must keep the Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. Happy investing. And thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host, also the host of the Locked On NHL Women's Hockey Spotlight. And we are expecting to have some women's hockey news for you. Make sure you follow and that you are subscribed to Locked On NHL. Also, make sure that you check out our Women's Hockey Spotlight playlist, and that's where you can find our most up-to-date videos. Lots going on the PWHL. They've got a new playoff format that I'm going to break down on the next Spotlight. Upper deck cards. There's been a little bit of controversy as the PHF came to a close, but it looks like we might have a resolution, at least for some of those players, with a new deal with that. And also, where should women hockey players have their name on their jersey? I'm going to talk about that on the next Women's Hockey Spotlight. But for this episode of Locked On Kraken, we're going to wrap with the state of the franchise. Tomorrow, we're going to hear from Ronnie Francis. And question of the day. Do you think Jordan Eberle is a member of the Seattle Kraken at the trade deadline? That's a big one. I want to know what y'all think. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on tomorrow's episode. Also, for the Locked On Kraken insiders, make sure you check your messages because I'm going to announce when I'm going to do the next AMA, Ask Me Anything. It will definitely be after the trade deadline. So I will let you know about that and make sure you get your questions in. Ron Francis. So, a lot of people, including Eberle and Haxtell, were asked about Alex Wenberg, who's already seen on the ice in Westchester County. Thank you very much. 914 represent at practice with the New York Rangers. I can't imagine one way or another, he's going to be asked a lot about Eberle and what the long-term future is for Eberle. I mean, is there a world in which Eberle doesn't get traded at the deadline, but is still not a member of the Seattle Kraken come next season? Now, that might not be something that the Seattle Kraken want to do. And obviously why he is a part of conversations at the deadline is because you don't want to lose someone like Eberle effectively for free. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. Anyway, I think the Eberle situation is very interesting. It really sounds like he's either going to be with the Kraken or not by tomorrow. Scary, scary stuff. So if he is with the Kraken, what does that mean for this team? Do they realistically have a shot to make the playoffs? Let's take a look at the standings. The Seattle Kraken, now there are games going on as I'm recording, but the Seattle Kraken are in 5th place, 67 points, still trying to crack that 70 points, right behind the LA Kings, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Vancouver Canucks in the Pacific Division. When we look at the wild card at the time that I am recording this episode, so depending on when you listen to it, it might be out of date because that's how quick things are moving, folks. But in the wild card, 4th overall in the wild card, currently tied with the St. Louis Blues, both of us at 67 points. And then you have the Nashville Predators, who are crushing it right now, who are tied right now with the Vegas Golden Knights when it comes to points. Now, as I said, there are games happening at the time that I'm recording. I am recording, and there are games that we still need final, a lot of games, including St. Louis right now in the 3rd period are behind. They're playing the New Jersey Devils. So I would love to see the Devils, get after it. Excuse me, Calgary ahead of Tampa Bay Lightning right now going into the 3rd period. They're up 5-2. Right now in the 2nd period, Nashville leads the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres. So that's a game that could have some implications. Arizona and Minnesota just dropped the puck in the 1st period here, scoreless. You've got Vancouver playing Vegas. Now, that does have implications, not so directly, though, because those teams are a ways ahead of us. But Ottawa taking on the LA Kings. So there's a lot of games happening, all right, in the next day or so that could really impact what happens even before the Seattle Kraken get a chance to hit the ice next. So all obviously we can do is focus on our next 2 points, and that is against a team in the Winnipeg Jets. We saw Joey Daccord put up a really valiant effort and a hard fight for the Seattle Kraken in net. That being said, it wasn't a complete game. We won that game and we should feel good about it. But I think the trade deadline drama has taken us away from some of the details that, again, are just not there for the Seattle Kraken. And I love on the one hand that they were able to gut out that win. On the other hand, there's a part of me that wants to say, okay, but if you fix these things that we've been talking about all season, then you don't need to gut out that win and you just win it outright. And so how many points have we left on the table by having to try and gut out wins instead of fixing fundamental problems? That's kind of the season. That is the summary of the Seattle Kraken season for me. And that's why it's a little frustrating. Can't do anything about it right now, especially because, again, the Seattle Kraken are not playing. Got to figure out what's happening with Eberle, at least on Pacific time. It will happen midday, so we'll know. It'll be right before dinner time, Eastern. Well, I guess around dinner time, Eastern time, right around dinner time, Central time, where we're going to find out the fate of Jordan Eberle and ultimately this Seattle Kraken team, definitely for the remainder of this season. And then lots of questions, especially if Eberle isn't on the roster come tomorrow. A lot of questions about the future. Not that they can't be answered, but it just is going to really it creates a situation in which I believe that there has to be an accelerated process coming from the front office for us to have good faith in what's happening. We've tried some things with the roster. We've seen coaching changes, even, with the goalie situation. I would be okay to see maybe another assistant coach change. We've also seen a lot of coaches with extensions get fired. I don't think we're in that territory just yet, but it's definitely something to consider and maybe a talking point, especially depending how the season ends this year when it comes to next year. Us out the gate this year we stumbled for sure. And it was disappointing for sure. And I don't think we ever really recovered. We hoped that we would recover. We thought maybe we were recovered. It's like, I'll put it this way. It's like a long-term injury. Just when you think you have a handle on it, there's complications and you were overcorrecting on one side, so now something else hurts. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how this season has felt for the Seattle Kraken. And the only thing that fixes that is time, rest, and sometimes a departure from certain things that you're doing or certain things that you aren't doing. You have to change the behaviors in order to get better. And that's a little bit of where the tension is with me, at least for the Seattle Kraken team. Anyway, tomorrow's a game day. So I hope you're as excited as I am, but you know the drill. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, hold fast, stay true, and let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody. Have a good night.